All right, we're on the latest episode of Blood Money, and today we have two very special guests, Andrew Serafini and Justin Ballard. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Doing amazing, Bam. Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on the Blood Money podcast. So, let's just kind of dive right into it. Andrew, we've had you on the show before, but if you want to give like a quick little background on yourself, what you do, and then Justin, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you for having us on today. My name is Andrew Serafini. I'm the founder of Light Dove Ministries, and Dr. Judy Mikovits is the health minister for our ministry. She's also my godmother, and so we've really been active in educating and empowering, and really trying to amplify truth across this country. We are at a time where deception and lies have really taken over, and so part of what Light Dove Ministries, how we formed, and was really birthed out of need. People were going in the hospital and being put on a standard of care that is meant to harm and actually meant to drive fatalities. And so Light Dove Ministries essentially formed what's called the Private Membership Association, where we could offer safe therapeutics, we could offer safe health modalities, and provide access to not only things that are going to help bring harmony and equilibrium back to the body, but also the spiritual healing, right? And integrating prayer and integrating how we can really draw down heaven on earth and give people tools that they can be essentially successful with. So we're at a time where our hospitals and our medical system is really degrading in the wrong direction. And so being able to provide solutions and access to folks, so that way they don't have to be driven by fear and actually rolling up their sleeve or be taking poison that's essentially driving, illness and disease and all the other things that we're sort of being infiltrated with. We're being toxified on every level. So we're really trying to do what we can to bring solutions to humanity at a time where there's not many people offering solutions.
Yeah. I mean, just real quickly, but Justin, before you begin, I was at one of the Light Up Ministries events, and just hearing Dr. Judy talk about some of the things that have been infused into our lifestyles, like these insane vaccines that, I mean, you could tell something's wrong when somebody comes out there and says these childhood vaccines cause a lot of damage. And next thing you know, there's a whole apparatus that's attacking that person, trying to destroy that person's life. And, that's something that we need to appreciate and understand as a culture and a society, that when that sort of backlash happens, you need to take a deeper look, because what they've been really trying to hide from us, especially as you look at Dr. Judy's research, is that a lot of the stuff they give us is pure poison, bad for us. And you look at autism rates, how they've skyrocketed, and you wonder, why is that all going on? There's a reason for everything. But sorry to interrupt. Justin, tell us all about what you've been up to.
Yeah. So my background, I'm a U.S. technology patent inventor. So I have patents around optometry and telecommunications. So for about 15 years, I worked in programming, and so working with things like live television streaming, and which I thought was actually good for humanity, but unfortunately, it's a tool that right now is really it's against us, as we see in the media. And so I've been the past 10 years really waking up and starting to see that there's some severe issues right now in our Western medicine, that the system's broken. So I was in a wheelchair about 10 years ago. I had a drug overdose. I was having multiple seizures every day, and the medication that they were putting me on was actually making me sicker and sicker. So I got to this point where basically it was between life and death, and I had to make a severe change, or a big change in my life. So focusing on natural holistic remedies, like eating healthy and drinking good water, being aware of radiation, and being aware of that we're also very emotional. And so if you watch a lot of television, with my background in patents, it's very easy to manipulate your nervous system with the television. Anybody can look up Henricus G. Lou, which they named Hulu after, and you can actually give people orgasms and sexual arousal just from the television being on with those refresh rates.
Wow.
And so I've been really studying with different technologies, the effects on the brain, the effects on the blood, and how do we protect ourselves? And that's what's really key right now. We have to figure out how do we not only Ephesians 6 put the full armor of God on, but how do we protect ourselves in our environment that we're in right now? So, work on several clinical trials, and we're just testing what's good and what's bad. And so far, there's a lot of bad out there.
Yeah. We did a Blood Money episode where a gentleman came in and told us that essentially we're getting hypnotized from our television sets every single day, that the power of television and hypnosis is a real thing. Gave us an actual example where a whole audience of 600 people was hypnotized. And I mean, I don't know what else there's to say. I mean, this is definitely a tool that is used. It does toxify the mind. Now, tell us a little bit about the approach that you take in terms of, all the toxicity that's coming. Let's say somebody, gets sick, they have cancer, they come to you. You're not a traditional clinic. How do you approach something like that?
Well, we don't treat any disease. So if anybody tells you they can cure your cancer, they're lying to you. You heal it yourself. So just like happiness, it's an inside job. And so when it comes to people that are sick, we do brain scans, and so we have many different technologies from brain masters to signets. Which Andrew's been able to experience some of the signet, and so we're bringing in brain masters now, so we can actually look and see how the brain is communicating. Because really, if for a cancer cell, for example, that's your own cell. It's lost communication, it's gone rogue. And so how do you restore that communication? How do you get things back on track? And they won't tell you that at a hospital. They won't go in and actually look at the communication between the brain and the body. And that is vital for our healing. And so I'm really focused on brain health. Your body is electromagnetic. So your thoughts control your magnetic field, and your magnetic field is what holds the electricity inside of you. And then after that, we have the chemical. And so really, my big focus, especially in the past few years, is what's going on in your brain, what's going on in your thoughts. And so if you watch television and you look up patents like Henricus G. Lou and what has been developed for the past 40 years in television, you realize that they are telling you what to think. They're programming you as a television programming. So you can actually see that in the brain. You can see how the brain develops and where your mind and thoughts are going, whether they're negative, which is going to create health problems, or if you can switch onto the positive, which creates health. And so that's where our big focus is how do we get you your thoughts and your brain back?
Wow. I mean, we've interviewed doctors that talk about essentially that our whole medical industrial complex is nothing but a destruction machine, that really preventative medicine is where it's at, doing more comprehensive tests, really keeping up with somebody's blood, what's in there, knowing that, cancer might be coming because we're seeing XYZ signs. It almost seems like that kind of an approach married with what you're talking about is like the next revolutionary step in medicine.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the future. It's where we're all going. We are wonderfully made. And so we have to really understand the emotional component and the spiritual component so we can be whole. Where we're not just a physical mass. So much more.
Yeah, and but then you have this industrial complex that tries to, shut us all up when we try to talk about these alternative methods. We shouldn't even say alternative because that insinuates that what they're doing is the rock solid method, and we've really seen that that's actually not a good method. Andrew, I know you've been involved in the CBD world. I could tell you, quick little thing from my experience and how this whole medical industrial complex works. I remember back, about 5 years ago, I decided to take a break from my work in entertainment, my work in film and television. Just, after 20 years of it, I said, let me try something else. I tried to open up a little CBD company. And I got to tell you, like the roadblocks that were placed in front of me, I could have been dealing crack on the streets or crystal meth and had a smoother journey than trying to get my, benign CBD products on anywhere, especially like the Amazons of the world. It's like they don't like this stuff. And then you follow what they're selling, what they're into, what they're pushing. And it's basically a mirror copy of what the medical industrial complex wants, what the CDC wants, what the World Economic Forum wants. It has nothing to do with a lot of these holistic alternative approaches that are actually really good for you. You're deep in this world. I mean, tell me, what do you see? What do you see as the future? And any tips are always appreciated because I know you have the secret medicine back there in terms of some of the stuff that Judy talks about that's actually really good for us. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been definitely a war, them and many people, good people like you that were pushed out of the cannabinoid industry because of those roadblocks and hurdles. We've really learned how to make cannabinoid medicine more of a medical application. So we don't focus on dispensaries or gas stations, or we're really working with high-level medical practitioners to validate and legitimize cannabinoid medicine. And so we know now that CBD treats more than 50 health conditions, and our bodies have the largest receptor system. It's called the endocannabinoid system, right? It's actually meant to to have an interaction with cannabinoids. So, really where the challenge has been is that it sits in a Schedule 1 category, meaning it has no medicinal value and has a high propensity for addiction, which is the most hypocritical conversation I think we could ever have. The government actually has patents on cannabinoids for being a neuroprotectant and an antioxidant, yet it sits in this Schedule 1 category that has no medicinal value.
With heroin.
With heroin, exactly. And it actually really truncates the ability to get financing for clinical trials. Only certain universities can actually handle it because it's a Schedule 1 narcotic. I mean, it's so backwards, it's unbelievable. But really the great thing too, Vim, is there's now more than 33 states that have medical cannabis programs. And in those states, we're seeing the opioid overdose rate from this opioid epidemic dropping by 25, 30, sometimes upwards of 40%, right? When people are actually getting treated with natural cannabinoid medicine versus these opiates that are essentially causing cardiorespiratory issues and overdose. We're seeing miraculous results in terms of getting people off of those medicines onto a natural, therapy that's going to help bringing balance back to the body where the body can thrive.
Wow. So you guys are obviously connected in terms of, your agenda, how you see the world. I mean, tell me a little bit about how you've worked together, what you're trying to do in unison.
Yeah, and we met Justin. Dr. Judy introduced me to Justin. Godspeak was our home church, Pastor Rob McCoy. And Justin, we both used to go to that church. I recently moved. Now we're up in Yuba City at the Church of Glad Tidings. But in meeting Justin, I really found a kindred spirit, right? We share the same heart for humanity. And sometimes that can be a detriment to business, right? In fact, I've had to make my wife the CEO of our company because I want to give it all away. I want to help people. I want people to understand that there's hope, right? And I think sometimes when it can be tied to an economic interest, it dilutes the integrity of what we're trying to accomplish. So, and in many cases, we're giving away more than we're even, than we're essentially selling or providing, services for. And really, that's to create that trust bridge, right? There's been so much deception. There's been so many lies and falsehoods that people need to just know that we're going to come alongside them no matter what. And in that journey, Justin and I have really created a family type bond where we can send, health connections to one another, but also really advance where, light medicine and frequency medicine and a lot of these really healing modalities can go, but they've been really pulled back because of what we're seeing, like you mentioned, the medicine complex of really is the medical mafia of stopping anything that actually heals the body. They don't want you to be a part of or even prevent disease from happening.
Yeah. I mean, now in terms of going forward, is this sort of thing have to occur in the private first until people catch on to it? I mean, how does this become an avenue that the regular folks out there decide to pursue?
And I'll have Justin piggyback this, but we started what's called a private membership association. So a PMA or private membership association allows us to get to have a private interaction with our end users, right? So they essentially, for lack of better term, they take on the liability if there was something to happen in terms of this interaction that we're having. The liability is absolved by the person that we're helping. Right. So which,
by the way, it's not much different than walking into a doctor's office. You got to sign 50 forms releasing them from any liability. I mean, you're basically saying it's the same thing, only it's a private interaction as opposed to having the insurance companies and the industrial complexes overlook the process.
Exactly right. And it allows us to have more latitude in the things that we can offer, right? Where a lot of this, what they say, quasi medicine, where Rockefeller really introduced pharmaceutical medicines in the 20s and 30s and ran out all the natural health practitioners, all the natural health colleges. And so if we know in terms of really healing the body sustainably, petroleum-based medicines will never do that because they do not treat root cause disease. They only mask symptoms. Where when we get into the natural side of things and we're working with the cannabinoid medicine of light and frequency and other things, they actually treat the root cause of illness, and we can bring the body back to that place of homeostatic function or balance.
Yeah. I mean, part of this is also like people need to acknowledge it. I mean, if you look at the evidence, right? If you're like, all right, I'm going to conduct an investigation as to how good our health is, and you look at the beaches in the 70s, 60s, 50s, fit people, good diets, then you introduce, high fructose corn syrup, pharmaceuticals become bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, there's literally a curve from the 80s all the way to now where the pharmaceutical profits have just, like this, right? And so, you parallel that with like people just visually looking less healthy. You got to know that, hey, like, I mean, it doesn't take a Sherlock Holmes to realize that all these factors in combination are not resulting in the best version of oneself.
It's so true. And, even the propaganda that's surrounding this COVID nonsense that we're in right now is the same propaganda that we saw in the 20s and 30s when they ran cannabis medicine out. I mean, the food table's even flipped upside down, right? It calls for, low fat and high carbohydrates. It should be high natural fats and low carbohydrates, right? And we're essentially the fattest country on the planet. It's because of the deception and lies to drive a business, into the pharmaceutical machine, right? Which they control through patents. And it's not ever been about having a healthy society. It's how do we have repeat customers? It's basically like a big drug dealer. I mean, that's essentially what these pharmaceutical companies are.
I mean, like literally, yeah. It's funny how the corporations take over organized crime only to become a worse version of organized crime. We were talking about Las Vegas, right? It's like the good old days when the mafia used to control it, because, when the mafia used to control it, they didn't allow all these like pedophiles around. But then you have this cold, heartless corporations that doesn't really care what's going on. Yes, it's like, I'm not saying the mafia was a good thing, but it seems as though when corporations, industrial, when they get to a level where it becomes essentially its own industry to the level of what pharmaceuticals has become, I mean, it really becomes just a worse version of the kind of street crimes you would see with drug dealing, legalized drug dealing. Justin, is there, in terms of some of the examples of people you've helped out, like including, like you've done for yourself, without naming names, could you tell us a little bit more about the process? It sounds like sometimes you're literally witnessing miracles by having people change how they think. Tell us a little bit more about, some of the examples of that.
Yeah, well, with my background in television and programming and understanding how the brain can be so manipulated, when I first started to heal myself, I realized that my healing was greatly, it was very slow, and it was because I was dealing with a lot of emotions and trauma. So I had to go in and address that. And so as I started to get better, I was using different light therapies. So I don't know if you're familiar with Rife machines or Raymond Royal Rife, but he had an incredible history back in the early 1900s. He had a 100% success rate. So he actually took all these terminal patients from USC and was on the front of the newspaper, the man to end all disease. And so he was literally under the microscope and looking, and he discovered the Bacillus X and Y virus, which are so small. He compares a red blood cell as the Empire State Building, and this particular virus, which is information, the size of a nickel on the sidewalk. So I tell people it's like me sending Andrew a text message, and I know the text message is in his phone, but I want you to take a hammer, break open the phone, and find that text message. We know it's in there, but it's like impossible to find because it's so small. And so he built a 5,000 piece microscope using glycerin and without any type of electromagnetic field to amplify, to actually see these viruses live. And he created sound frequencies to shatter them, just like an opera singer breaks glass. And I just found that profound. When people would come to me, we would literally put in frequencies under lights, and I've worked with 7 different clinics. So there's a lot of people that do light therapy across the country. But I noticed not everybody got better. In fact, it's actually a very small amount. 99% of cancer is polyfactorial. So that means that you can shrink a tumor, but the tumor or the cancer is not going to go away because it will adapt and it will come back. And so it's literally, at first, it's like, okay, it's starting to work, but then it's now adapted. And what you're currently doing isn't working anymore. It's like in war, everybody's, they shooting arrows, and now they put up shields that the arrows can't penetrate. So now you got to have a new weapon against it. And so I followed Dr. Reichgerd Hamer out of Germany, and he had 20,000 cancer patients, and he did brain scans on all of them. And he noticed that every single person that had cancer had a dark spot on the cerebral cortex of the brain. And that's why I'm so focused on the brain. And he found that psycho-emotional work would clear up that dark spot. And the moment the dark spot went away on their brain scan, their cancers started to disappear. Immediately, healing edema would happen. And then the cancer over time would be completely dissolved. And 10 years later, he would check in with his cancer patients, and sure enough, the cancer never came back. And so this woman came to me. She's a television She had a brain tumor. She had stage 3 leukemia. Her nose was bleeding. And she went the Western medicine route. She tried the chemo, the radiation. And so I prayed with her and I got to know her. And I realized her life was really traumatic. She was in an abusive relationship, and she was being physically beaten up, and she needed to change her life. We're environmental creatures. So if I sleep in Chernobyl, or go camping next to Fukushima and drink the water, I'm going to get really, really sick. And so I need to change my environment. And so for her, her cancer was a mechanism that the body was had enough. She could not stay in this abusive relationship. Her body was terrified. And of course, your body will do whatever you tell it to do, but it does not want to be beaten up all the time. It doesn't want to be in this negative, toxic soup. And so she did it. She picked up the phone. She broke up with this abuser. She changed her life. And 60 days later, the oncologist could not find any cancer in her body. And so the brain tumor is resolved and the leukemia is resolved. So while we do light therapy and we do other things, the main thing is, because 99% of cancer is polyfactorial, is really going into your subconscious and going into your life and figuring out why you're unhappy, why your body's scared, why your body is literally blocking communication and flow. If you were sitting at a dinner table and you separated every part of your brain, so literally you put your cognitive control network, your executive control network, your default mode network, and you all put them on the table. Well, if the limbic system sits down, it will eat first. It will literally get all the food. And so if you're in any type of flight or flight response, all the energy to your executive functions of the brain is going to go into that limbic system. And then there's nothing left to actually truly think and really like plan out our lives. So if you watch television, for example, Indiana Jones, your heart, if you actually had a heart monitor, every time there's a bullet being fired at Indiana Jones, or he's dodging an arrow, or a big stone coming after him, our body feels it. That's why television is so powerful. So everybody is literally addicted to TV. And so as they're watching this television, it's rewiring your nervous system. So at the end of the day, there's no energy left to actually do real important thinking and to think for yourself. So that's why a lot of people are so lost with disease. It's not just cancer, autoimmune diseases. The list goes on and on. Fibroids, endometriosis, those are emotional diseases that have an emotional root. So you can go get as many steroids as you want. You can put as many Band-Aids as you want. You can take as many painkillers as you want, but you're not going to get the root of that disease unless you go in and you find the trauma behind it or the subconscious programming that needs to be deactivated. And there's tons of technologies that do it, but unfortunately, none of them are covered by the insurance. None of them are allowed to even be talked about publicly. So as Andrew said, we're a PMA, and I almost died. In fact, they gave me just months to live. I was at UCLA. I went from 250 pounds to 120 pounds. I had 13 different doctors. I was doing NIH Helix, so I did all kinds of experimental medication to try to get my seizures under control. In the midst of it, I became a drug addict. I was hooked on Oxycontin. I was taking Norcos every day like candy. I was taking Adderall because I couldn't think anymore because the drugs were clouding my mind. So I was literally snorting Adderall, which is like meth. And then I was on statins and all these other drugs to try to keep myself going. So I was a walking pharmacy. And pharmacy, of course, we all know means witchcraft or pharmakia. And so I had
which, by the way, sorry to interrupt you. That's so perfect for them. Yeah. So perfect, because now they're cashing on your pain. And you know what I compare that to with the way the pharmaceutical industry dominates medicine? It's like if you're the person making the rules for toll booths and you are also running the toll booth, so you're making the rules of whether to have toll booths and running the toll. What do you think is going to happen, right? And that's exactly what you're talking about. So right there, as you're suffering, almost dying, they're making a whole bunch of money. So to them, that's a positive. Just insane. But anyway,
yeah, it's perfect. We're on blood money. But I first started feeling better when somebody was bringing me really clean water. And so I realized as I was searching water in Pasadena, California, that JPL had leaked some fuel into the wells that were feeding my water source. And that was, I thought, the reason why I was getting sick at first. And so with my technical background, I made 84 chemistry videos. And I thought, oh my goodness, we're going to change the world. We're going to expose all these poisons in the water. That fluoride is really a neurotoxin. And
Hmm.
instead I got threats and I got content deleted and I got attacked. And I was like, oh my goodness, I thought I was going to save the world, but they already know this.
Yeah.
And so that's not really the battle to be fought. So if nobody goes to McDonald's, McDonald's goes out of business. So you don't attack McDonald's, you just find a better option for them. So I started basically working. And so we're called Just Hope, and we're as a PMA, we're here to actually educate and find better alternatives. So you don't need to go to the hospital, that you don't need to get on painkillers, that God has provided a solution for everything. Before the problem occurred, there was already a solution in play. And we didn't
Hmm.
have to find it. So all day long, I'm looking under a microscope and I'm looking at foods and supplements, and I look at my blood on a regular basis, and I'm always testing things on myself because I am not a medical doctor. I'm a scientist. And
Hmm.
so I'm going in and I'm finding things that actually have a real chance to help the world. And of course, then I share them with like Andrew and other doctors that have a chance to actually say, hey, we found something. And so we now have a way to help eliminate your pain without you having to go get addicted to drugs and painkillers, as we know that is a major issue. And also why I started this. I mean, before the pandemic, before all of this, I wanted to help other people that were drug addicts like myself. It's a responsibility when you find something to share it with others, not keep it quiet.
Hmm.
And so I was really prepared for the pandemic because I have hundreds of books that I've been researching to try to help people get off of pharmakia. And it was a perfect segue for the pandemic. So in some ways, I couldn't have been better prepared.
The black dot that you're talking about in the person's mind. So as they're going through some of the processes that you're talking about, that black dot starts to disappear. I mean, is that a manifestation of trauma, misery? Is that what that is? Or
Yeah, every cell has a nucleus except for the red blood cells, and they're all communicating. So they don't speak English like we're talking right now, but they speak in light and fractals. And so Dr. Hamer, what he did is he took 3,000 women that had left breast cancer and he separated them out. And he took 3,000 women that had right breast cancer and he separated them out. And he did brain scans on all of them. And every woman that had left breast cancer had a black spot in the same spot of the cerebral cortex. Every woman with
mm,
right breast cancer had a different black spot on another part of the cerebral cortex, but they all had the spot in the same place according to their cancer. Same with prostate
wow.
cancer. So all cancers, he was able to prove, and he actually diagnosed your cancer not through actual looking at the cancer itself, but through looking at the cerebral cortex. And so there
Hmm.
is a whole group of practitioners in Germany that have continued his work. But yeah, he took him 20, he was a surgeon, 20,000 cancer patients, all with brain scans, and he was able to prove with 100% that there would be a dark spot on the cerebral cortex. So there's
Wow.
technologies now that can actually look at your cerebral cortex, and they can look at the communication between the brain to where the cancer is manifesting in the body. If you have breast cancer, your whole body has cancer because the breasts are part of your body. So cancer is systemic, but you will see a correlation to a certain part of your brain and where the cancer's at. Now, 1% of cancer, according to Dr. Antonio Jimenez, who has the Hope for Cancer out of Mexico, he has 2 hospitals
Hmm.
down there, extremely successful with cancer. In fact, I love his book. It's one of the most profound books. He's a hematologist oncologist, but it's called Hope for Cancer. And he really goes into the deep dive of the polyfactorial side of cancer. But 1% of it is something that would just be basically a virus or a disease or a toxin. We know a lot of people have mercury fillings, or they have what they call root canals, and your teeth are fuse boxes. And so if you have a root canal, you're literally breaking up communication. And so when the cells need to reproduce, and there's no communication, they're either going to go rogue, or they're going to have apoptosis and break down. So you have to restore communication. And once communication is restored, then the cells know exactly what to do. They'll clean themselves up and get on with their job.
Wow. 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 So interesting. I mean, a lot of what you're saying, it seems like it's attainable through achieving higher frequencies. And a lot of what they're doing seems to be all about imprisoning us into lower frequencies.
Absolutely.
And that seems to be the big battle there. I don't know. looking at it from a bird's eye point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, your thoughts make you acidic.
Yeah.
I was going to say too, you'd mentioned the mouth health piece, Justin. There's a documentary called Root Cause, and they found that women that had 97% of women that had a root canal on the right side also had breast cancer on the right side. So there's a direct, there's meridians that flow through the body, and electricity flows. And what Justin was mentioning in terms of that blockage, if there's not cellular communication, it's only a matter of time. Something. Byproduct of unbalance, right, or disequilibrium, starts to show its face. But it's just become so sad in terms of, there's no business model in prevention. You mentioned prevention before. We can prevent a lot of these things from happening in the first place, but Western medicine or allopathic medicine is reactionary, right? You have to get something before we can cure it. And in most cases, we can prevent these diseases from even manifesting in the first place,
Yeah. And a lot of the things that you're talking about seem to be permanent cures. You always hear about cancer coming back. I mean, that sort of thing. And it sounds like if you haven't figured out the traumas behind that, what, causes your, black spot in your brain, then that's probably why the cancer keeps coming back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
When I had a drug overdose, and that's changed my life. That's actually how I met Jesus. They call it an NDE experience. And so when I came back, I was a different person. But also one of the side effects of the medication I was on was kidney stones and paralysis. And so I got kidney stones twice within 6 months. I had major issues, especially with my right kidney, and I was paralyzed on the right side of my body. I couldn't move my right leg for about 9 months, and then I didn't have full functions for a year and a half. So I was on a cane, and this is 10 years ago in my early 30s. And so I really woke me up, and I wondered what was going on. But also that breakdown in communication caused my teeth to rot on just the upper right side of my mouth. So I'm missing actually 4 teeth because there's definitely something that happened in the communication, and of course my teeth were a big part of it. And I found that to be really shocking. So thank goodness I don't have any mercury fillings or any root canals, and that should be what people start with. There's a famous doctor in Vegas named Dr. Royal Fuller. His clinic was completely burned to the ground, and he was doing bioenergetic testing and healing all kinds of diseases. He's in his 90s now, but he was such a big threat to Western medicine because of what he was doing. But he would not see you unless you had your mercury fillings and your root canals pulled out first. So he's like, don't waste my time. Which I found to be amazing that literally he had everybody take care of their teeth first, because if you don't have a problem now because of your teeth, it will happen eventually. So dental is really important, and don't see a regular dentist, see a biodentist, a dentist that doesn't use poisons, and a dentist that is not even going to fathom using a root canal or a mercury filling.
Wow. You had mentioned, in terms of the health ramifications with teeth, just wanted to mention blood money. I don't remember the episode, but we interviewed a gentleman by the name of Dr. Levy, who says that pretty much 100% or almost 100% of heart problems also stem from bad dental work, root canals, buildup of calcium, and other things. You had mentioned having an experience, where with Jesus becoming, sounds like born again. I mean, do you want to elaborate on that journey and what happened there that changed your life?
Yeah, I ended up I was taking a bunch of painkillers and mixing them, unfortunately, with some of my experimental seizure medication that I was taking, and I left my body, and so they call it an NDE experience. And so that's when I experienced this beautiful, what I first thought was an angel of light. And then now I know it was Jesus. And I used to have, the reason I have patents in optometry, I've always had issues with my eyes, and also with seizures and having poor vision. And so he put his hands over my eyes. And when I came back, they tested me, and I had 20/20 vision. And I was like, wow. So I haven't wore glasses in over 7 years. And I also haven't had a seizure in over 7 years, which is incredible. So I can't recall what Jesus told me. I just remember I was there for a long time. I'd never experienced what I thought was love, but this was actually real love. And so you can love movies, you can love friends, and you can love food. But then there's agape love. There's this unconditional love that loves you no matter what. I mean, it's just the most beautiful, it's encompassing love. And so when I came out of it, it completely changed my life. And so now I completely believe in Jesus. And I don't know exactly what he told me, but I know that he said I have a purpose and that I'm supposed to be here on this earth for a reason. And so, despite the doctors giving me a short amount of time left to live, and my body basically wasting away into nothing, he brought me back. And of course, I'm like, well, why didn't you heal my leg? But now, after watching the TV show The Chosen and seeing that whole aspect of how one of the apostles had a bum leg, and he said it's actually a message for other people. And so now I'm like, wait a minute, maybe my leg not being able to use it for a year and a half was actually a blessing, because at first it made me really learn more about the body and health and communication, and two, it developed my patience also, and I really need to develop patience. So now I got baptized May 5th, 2018. So I'm just now getting ready to celebrate 5 years as baptized and following Jesus, and so I live and breathe whatever God wants me to do. And being in the television world, you're around luxury, you're around illusions. So, the age-old thing, you eat and you get hungry again, you drink, you get thirsty again, you have nice things, but then they fade. And now I'm looking for something eternal. Now I'm looking for something that really fills you up. And that part is what everybody needs, because it's very easy to see a dangling golden carrot and to sell your soul and to sell yourself out. So I'm really glad that I went through all of this medical hell for me, literally hell on earth, to get to this point. So I never want to do it again, but I'm really grateful that I got here. And it made you really tough too. Me and Andrew have been through the fire. So now we're tough as beef jerky. So we're not easily pushed over.
That's awesome. This is really great. Andrew, was there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd want to, talk about, mention,
Yeah, I want to mention, can you guys hear me okay? I know my internet's been a little unstable, but one of the things I want to mention is we have a call this Thursday, and we've been really working hard to pull together sheriffs and pastors and spiritual leaders from across the country. And it sort of is now turned into an international effort. We have pastors from Canada and the UK and Europe all joining this call. And what we're doing essentially is bringing together sheriffs and pastors to show them, undeniable evidence that this shot is a bioweapon, right? That they're literally like putting that injection is like putting a gun to somebody's head. And the other part of that too is to start to bring support and we the people behind the sheriff, so they can start doing their job in terms of enforcing accountability and enforcing justice. So it's really become a very important endeavor in bringing these communities together. One, that we can unite the body of Christ, right? Unite the body of what the Lord is trying to do in the earth right now, but also have the accountability piece, that we can stop these crimes against humanity. We can stop the toxification of our skies and the stuff that they're putting in our food, and really start to make a difference for the good guys, right? We know that God wins in this. We know how the story ends, but we have to rise up as a people. We have to rise up as a nation. And so we're bringing that group together, and there'll be a series of calls, but I really believe this will be the catalyst to what God can do. And we're already seeing revival breaking out in universities and pockets of the country. And I think he's really going to breathe on this and really ignite, in a spirit of courage that we so desperately need in this country right now. So if people are interested in joining that call, they can RSVP to calling all pastors at patriotview.us. If they send an email RSVPing, we'll send the link out to the call. We're not openly advertising the link for obvious reasons, but we really want the fighters, the prayer warriors, the people that are really standing for this country to come together on this call and really start to not only flex our spiritual muscle and fortitude, but really, inform the sheriffs that we have to start taking action now, where we're not going to have a country here before long.
Yeah, I mean, you remind me of a couple of interviews we've done recently. One was with a gentleman by the name of Coach Dave, whose biggest beef was the cowardice of the church and the fact that, there's been a lot of, flat out Luciferian looking things happening around us, and not, you stood up, Andrew. You're very vocal, but unfortunately, like the doctors out there, 99% of ministers, pastors were not very vocal, and that's one of the issues that seems like we have, and we got to get the church involved. We got to get families involved. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I just did an interview with a gentleman by the name of Todd Callender, an attorney, right? And what's very interesting is that he's saying that whoever's taken the shot is actually the patented property, like literally a patent, no longer human. And there's like legal documents that show this, that you are considered something other than human, right? Mm-hmm. And the implications here, which I think are very interesting for gentlemen that are, sheriffs, is that if you are not man or woman, you have no rights under the law. So we're talking about pre-1860 slavery, slave state, in terms of what that legally means. Now, whether the courts are going to, look at individuals like that and say, you have no rights under the law or not. The fact is, though, there's a legal precedent that states that these are not man, woman anymore, not even human anymore, as long as you've taken that shot. And unless you're man or woman, you don't have rights under the law. So interesting little tidbit there as far as how this affects people. And frankly, the slavery state that they seem to be wanting us to be in. I mean, anybody that knows about PMAs and implications of a birth certificate, citizenship, that sort of thing, knows that, this is kind of part of the agenda. They'd rather have us to be these docile slaves. They don't want us to move to these higher frequencies, some of the things that we're talking about, better medicine, all that. It just seems to be systems based upon, making financial gain from suffering, unfortunately, That's what's so enlightening about what you guys are doing. I mean, it's literally the work of God, and I deeply commend you for, doing this work.
I'm glad you brought up Todd too. Todd's a good friend, and we've been working closely with Todd. And what you're talking about too is those that have taken the injection, this gene therapy application. They're technically not human. They're called trans-sapien, right? They're trying to fight this in court. Mm-hmm. And of course, Todd's fight is the 13th Amendment, that we've already abolished slavery. But another part of this is called the oath of office, right? And so a lot of these elected officials and judicial officers have not taken their oath of office. I'm talking high level, like Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg and several others. And so they're operating without any accountability or connection to the country, right? They're literally running they're rogue agents. So every piece of legislation or legislative action that these people have put into place, we can unwind, right? As we show them in a court of law that their oath of office is not being adhered to, that we can literally unwind it. It's like it never happened. So what we're trying to do in part with the sheriffs is to educate them enough to show, hey, we're coming behind you to support you. But many of these elected officials that are driving our country into the ground, driving our economic system into the ground, driving medicine into the ground, are operating with no oath of office, and they have to be removed. And we can give them the support to do that, right? To start making arrests and drive some accountability in this country again.
Totally. And Todd was talking about how most of the people causing most of the damage are not even elected. They're appointed officials, which is an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But thank God for people like Todd and others that are, there's high-level attorneys that are in this fight, Tom Renz and others, but there's very far and few between, right? I really believe that it's the 3%. You look back at Gideon's army in the Bible, he had to whittle the army down from 10,000 to 300. And why is that? Right? Yeah. One reason is to give God glory, but two, there's many are called or few are chosen. Why? Because few choose to really pick up the courage that's necessary to fight this fight and to sacrifice what's required to advance truth. And because we're fighting against every facet of society is pointing the other direction, and we're going upstream against it,
Exactly. And, then my next question there becomes, we're talking about taking this through courts and stuff, not to get too deep into this topic, but you're talking about going to, again, you're at the bar, you're going to the bar with a bunch of bar agents that are filling our legislatures and are filling our judicial branch, hoping that, I don't know, that they're going to go against the agenda, that they're going to go against the greater narrative. And I don't want to sound like, a doomsday type person, but I like to think about these things before they happen, and I one of the solutions was getting grand juries involved in this to get it out of, potentially corrupt attorney generals or DAs. I mean, it's just things that we got to think about, because I don't think there's going to be a good, easy road ahead in terms of restoring our rights, because it is just on such a systematic level at this point,
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. In fact, I was talking to Karen Kingston right before I got on this call, and that's a lot of the solutions we're trying to open up and drive. It's almost every area, in fact, every area of our society has been corrupted and been captured. So it's really finding
Mm-hmm.
people that are one that have, you know, the fortitude to stand for America. America's a miracle, and it's truly a miracle of God that this country has existed this long and has been a beacon and a light on a hill. But it's really humanity at the end of the day that's at stake. And if we continue at the pace we are, I think we mentioned autism a little earlier in the call. That used to be 1 in 10,000 less than two decades ago. Now it's 1 in 32, 1 in 28 for boys. It's like, you know, if we don't stop this environmental, you know, threat and assault on humanity, we're not going to have humanity.
Yep, exactly. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for showing up to this episode of Blood Money. We really appreciate your time. I know a lot of the information for the viewers out there is, you know, heavy information, but at this point, we can't sugarcoat this stuff. This stuff's, you know, happening out there. Humanity is at risk. It's time to change the paradigm. Thank you so much for your support. For those subscribing to our America Happens channel, keep in mind we are fully crowdfunded, and that's how we keep the corruption out of our business. Because when you have, you know, for example, the mainstream media, most of the money they get is from pharmaceutical companies. Guess what? When a pandemic comes, why do they hide the medicine from you? Because they're funded by the companies that want to hide the real medicine from you. So the way we do that is by empowering we the people. Please support America Happens. You can support us by donating, contributing, whether it's on our locals or right off our website. And please join us for all of our shows, including Blood Money with myself, Joy Gilbert's Gloves Off, Mindy Robinson's Conspiracy Truths, and Gianna Michelli State National University, as well as a new show that we just launched called Vibe Time, where we hang out, we talk about what's happening in the world, we talk about relationships, politics, all of the above. Thank you so much for joining us for this Blood Money episode, and I will see you on the next episode.